The time is now 3:30. I call to order the meeting of the Ways and Means Committee. A copy of the agenda for this meeting may be found on the county website under the tab for the Legislature. Please silence your phones and electronic devices. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so today we have a report to the Legislature, review of the 2026 executive recommended budget. With us today, we have Chris Koff, partner, PKF O'Connor Davies. And we also have Samantha Nardo, who's going to be our presenter today. So who would like to start first? The floor is yours, Chris.
All right. So thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to let us do this presentation. First, again, before we leave, and I forget, I'd like to thank the Budget and Finance Departments for all their assistance during the process. And just to explain the quick process to you, is what we do with your budget is we then look at the numbers that were placed in it. We make calculations based on later data than your budget department has, use some historical data, and if we see a variable, whether it be favorable or unfavorable, we report it to the legislature for your decision making during the process, your deliberation. So the budget as submitted by the county executive this year is $1.04 billion, which is about $53 million greater than the 2025 proposed budget. Sales tax, which is a major component of your budget process, the total amount in your budget is about $412 million. And this year you left that number flat with last year at $412 million. During the budget process, 44 positions, net positions were added to your budget. We did have some deletions, some adds. We have a schedule in the back of those. Next slide. So as I said, your overall budget went up $53 million. You can peruse this on your own, but what I did was try to highlight some of those departments that had the major increases or decreases as compared to last year's adopted budget. And as you go through, you'll notice most of them are definitely related to contractual increases in your salaries and fringe benefits, which are major drivers in your budget process. Your personal services budget, again, you break your budget down into different categories. So overall, you have almost $230 million with the personal services, salaries, overtime. You have equipment of only $2 million, contractual, about 600.
Just have one question.
So the last slide, I don't want to miss that. On the last slide, you had one of the departments is decreasing. Is that decreasing due to personnel and benefits going down, or what was that?
That was due to fringe. They reduced some salaries in the infirmary. They had some vacant positions in the nursing home, and they eliminated those positions. You couldn't fill them, so why have them in budget? You couldn't fill them because there was nobody available. It's not like they didn't want to. Your census is down because I believe they're having trouble finding nurse aides and nurses. So you can always come back and create a position. They're not funded. These are eliminated positions. You still have vacant positions there, but they did eliminate some.
Sure. Thank you. Sorry.
Again, $600 million in contractual. You have debt service about 33, most of them low, and employee benefits of 156. Property tax levy did go up by $4 million this year. Even with that increase, you'll notice your property tax rate went down by 12, almost 13 cents per $1,000 assessed. So even though you're raising more because of your growth in your community, you're able to generate more in your tax levy than you did the prior year, even while reducing what the average homeowner would pay, if their assessment didn't change. If somebody put an addition on, they would pay. This slide is just for you to see how your property tax levy bears a percentage of your overall budget. You can see that Orange County is about 12%. So property tax wise, you're the lowest county around this area and similar size. We included Rome. Your tax levy is only 12% of your budget, where the average is about 15%. Again, this budget in 26 appropriates $63 million within your surplus to fund the various operations of the county. That's up $23 million from the previous year. The 25 budget appropriated about $39.3 million. And you can see the general fund was up about $30 million. Debt service was down. And basically everybody else was down other than really the home and infirmary, which you fund the entire county share by appropriating their surplus. This is just our summary of findings. We'll talk about that at the end. So the first revenue is sales tax and Samantha.
So as Chris mentioned before, the sales tax is one of the major revenue sources. So for 2025, we're coming up with a $9.2 million unfavorable variance as compared to the adopted budget. And as the year-to-date receipts through October, the growth rate was only 0.5%. So we applied that to the remainder of the year. And that's where we're coming up with the 9.26 million unfavorable. For 2026, the county kept the budget flat with 2025. We applied a 2% growth to our base projection and are coming up with a 3.39 million unfavorable variance.
Now, just to be clear, I think the budget and finance department were at 9 million. I think they're projecting 5 million. But again, we used the 0.5. So hopefully they're closer to us. They have all your history. We used the prior year's receipts for the same period of time. Instead of year-to-date growth as they have, we applied that in. Saying we didn't see any reason why it was going to grow at a faster pace over the last 2 months than it has.
So the distribution of sales tax goes hand in hand with the collections. So since we're projecting the unfavorable variance, we're projecting a favorable variance for the distribution for that part.
So you share your revenue with the towns and villages. So if your overall collections are down, you distribute less. You budget based on your budget. So if you come in short 3 million, you're going to give less to the town. So you have a little bit, you have that offset because you're sharing less. So that everything is related to the same thing.
And this slide just shows in comparison to the other counties. As you can see, Orange County is 41.7% as compared to the average of 35%. So Orange County relies on their sales tax as for revenue. The next revenue is hotel tax. So for 2025, we're projecting 390,000 unfavorable.
It says favorable,
yeah.
but it's a typo. It's unfavorable. Sorry.
This is really due to the lost revenue that the county receives from extended stays for
Contractors
For
and films. So and also you also have social service clients in your hotels. You don't get much money from them because it's state agency. So you lost some money due to that. And you also lose money on the extended stays. If somebody stays more than 30 days, you don't get the hotel tax. That's in your local law. And I believe they were asked to look at the local law to see if you're one of the few counties that has that, or if it's mandatory by New York State.
So we carried our same trend to 2026 and are coming up with a $400,000 unfavorable variance.
And that would be affected by, we've told us some new hotels in the process. So if they open up in a year, obviously you generate some revenue from them. But as far as we know, none have COs yet. So we let them.
So interest and penalties on real property taxes. These are the revenues received on taxes that are not paid on time. For 2025, it's a small variance that we're coming up with, 50,000 unfavorable. And then for 2026, it's a 70,000 favorable. For interest and earnings, this is exclusive of interest and penalties on taxes. This is interest earned on investments. For 2025, we're coming up with a 2.41 million favorable variance. Last year, I think when the budget was done, we were expecting the rates to drop a lot more than they actually did, so we're coming in higher for 25, and then for 26, the feds have lowered their the rates just in October, and they're planning to meet again in December to possibly lower them again. Our projection, we took into consideration lowering it 50 basis points. I think that in October, they already dropped by 25 basis points. So for 2026, we took into consideration all the spending and use of fund balance, and we're coming up with a $340,000 unfavorable variance compared to the recommended budget. For gain on sale tax acquired property, there was about $100,000, we're projecting $100,000 favorable variance. That was just due to the sale of property in the town of Chester. And for 2026, there is no budget just because of the Supreme Court ruling in 2023. So we concur. For deferred tax, taxes and tax overlay, this is just based on a formula for
You don't collect the town and village taxes.
uncollected town and village taxes. So we're coming up with a $1.3 million unpayroll variance. And for 2026, the county budgeted $2 million, and we agree with that.
That's a very good item. Orange County has always been very conservative. And you recognize that you're not going to collect 100% of your taxes up front. So you put this overlay in and you generate this $2 million revenue to help you cash flow wise while you're waiting for the other taxes to be paid, because you do have to write your checks to the towns, villages, and schools that make them whole. So while you're waiting for that to continue, you need some money for your cash flow.
Just one question, Legislator O'Donnell.
So this year, right,
Mhm.
you think we're still gonna get the 1.3 million in the future?
It's a formula. What happens is the tax acquired property.
Letting know
Yeah,
we're
it's-
getting that money.
Yeah, eventually you'll get the money.
Okay. Thank you.
So for county clerk fees, this 2025 was the first full year that the county was able to collect Easy Pass fees. So I think in 2025, the county was expecting more revenue for that. So based just on year-to-date receipts, we're coming up with a $330,000 unfavorable variance. And in 2026, the county adjusted that and lowered the budget, and we're expecting a 210 favorable variance, just based on trends in historical trends that we've seen. For the tobacco settlement, this is just based on the actual payments that they've received through 2025. So we're projecting it's a 300,000 unfavorable variance for 2025. And for 2026, we're seeing a decline in smoking. So we're coming up with a $600,000 unfavorable variance.
And you received this money from the states, the settlements the states had, and you didn't securitize your money like a lot of other counties, so you're able to keep your full $3 million payment. But it did rise during COVID, if you remember, and started to creep back up. But I guess as people get outside now and then, and they're putting smoking, so your receipts are dropping.
The next revenue is payments in lieu of taxes. For 2025, we have a 90,000 unfavorable variance, but that's just due to one pilot not being paid. But the county is expecting to still receive that pilot. It just can't be reported for 2025. And for 2026, this is just based on the calculations, and we're coming up with a 300,000 unfavorable variance.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you say there was no?
So you know how to have payments from the, what's the difference from the budget to this, where's the variance coming from?
We added them up and one of the towns overstated the amount. So it was $300,000 overstatement.
Were they told about that?
It was just on their worksheet. They only get what it is, but there was one town had, you know, when you looked at the number, there was a duplication on it.
So for jail revenues for 2025, we're coming up with a $2 million favorable variance. This is due to an increase in the federal inmates for 2025. And for 2026, we're projecting the same increase in inmates, so we're coming up with a $430,000 favorable variance.
And you just negotiated your contract with the federal government, which is even higher than this. So,
The next revenue is gains and chance. This is the revenue that you get from the casinos. For 2025, we're coming up $50,000 short from the budget. And for 2026, we kept it, our projection flat, and we're coming up with a 50,000 favorable variance.
all right, so on the expenditure side, the first one we'll talk about is your personnel services. And that's your salaries and your overtime. So we'll first talk about the straight salaries exclusive of overtime. So your budget has about 206.6 million in it, of which you also, again, bought your budget that you're not going to fill certain positions. So that's net of about 8.96 million of salary savings that you put in this budget. What we're doing is we projected based on your last payroll that you'd be at about 194.85 for savings in exclusive of DSS of 9.3 million, including DSS about 11.75. So you did a good job managing your positions. You didn't fill them, you didn't add them, and you budgeted. You had 349 positions in the budget last year that were vacant, and this year you're down to 285. So you did fill or eliminate about 60 positions over the years. The 26 budget is up to 217.88 million. Again, includes a vacancy factor. This year, the vacancy factor is about 8.39 million. And again, assuming you fill all those positions, we concur with the amount that you put in. The next slide just lets you know which departments have the vacant positions. There's the 285 I just mentioned. So the budgeted salaries are about 17 million. You've offset that with an estimated savings of 8,394,000, leaving you a potential $9.2 million surplus if you never filled another position. And we know that isn't going to happen because they're correction officers, they're sheriffs, they're people that are in public safety and health. So people come and people go off your payroll. Now, over time, you can see that we're projecting a $2.66 million basically unfavorable or deficit in overtime. And a lot of that is related to the fact that you have vacant positions. So if you have a department that runs 24/7 shift and you have vacant positions, you're covering some of the shifts with overtime. So you can see the jail accounted for about 1.4 million and the sheriff a little under $1 million. So they were the bulk of that $2.66 million unfavorable. And if you've gone back to the previous slide, you see that each of those had significant number of vacant positions. So this year's budget, you can see they reflect an increase in the overtime, knowing that you just can't pluck people off the street to fill those vacant positions. They have to be trained, they have to be put in. So they've accepted that you're going to have a little more overtime, and we agree with the fact that you increase that overtime by about $2 million. This is just, again, for you, a position count comparison with other counties. And remember, you do have 304 positions in the nursing home, and not every county has a nursing home. All your contracts are in place. They're good through the earliest since 27, so you have no issues with unbudgeted contracts, so you're in good shape. Employee benefits. Again, definitely related to your personal service costs. So you have your retirement costs in New York State. We're showing roughly a $1.85 million favorable variance, again, exclusive of DSS. And that's because, again, you have vacant positions. You don't fill the position, you don't have to pay the retirement. When we look at the new budget, you budgeted about 38 million, an increase of about 4.7 million. We think you only need about 3.37 million. And again, that's because we have later data, we know the current rates. So we applied those current rates to your estimated salaries and came up with school savings. Health benefits. You can see a major chunk of your budget, $95 million in 2025. As we explained before, NISHIP doesn't come out with their final rates until November, December. You've already adopted the budget. So what happens is you have to put in an estimate of what you think those rates are going to be. I believe the budget department used, I just want to say approximately 9% increase this year. So they increased their expected 9%. We concur with that 9%. But for the current year, we have a $13 million savings in the general fund, overall $15 million. And again, because you budget for the health insurance for those vacant positions. And you budget them all at the family level. In case somebody does fill the position, you have the money to pay the wages. You didn't fill them, so you have savings. Current year, again, you budgeted 94 million. We think it'll be roughly around 90 million, $3.35 million favorable variance. And that variance is because we looked at your bills. And since you're married, single split is 60-40, we applied that to the vacant positions. Thinking it's proven to kind of the vacant positions reflect basically what your current population is. Social Security is just a formula. People go over the cap. And basically, 95% of your salaries are under the cap. But again, because you didn't fill positions, you incurred savings in both years. All right, public health for your physically handicapped children's programs. Again, you budgeted about 7.85 based on current usage. We're projecting about 8.96. We have seen a slight increase in the number of students and children that you're taking care of. But in addition, we've also seen an increase in the amount of usage each child has, each service that they're providing. So based on your current trend, which you spent through September, we're projecting an unfavorable variance of 1.1 million. But remember that is reimbursed by the state of New York, so you should have a favorable variance on your state aid of about $560,000. You can see that the 26 budget reflected that increase. So we agree with that based on the increase we're seeing in usage and cases. Next is the itinerant services. Again, you can see that we're projecting about 1.37 million above. Again, that's based on the expenditures through September and the number of children in the program. And again, that's funded partially by New York State. So you will have some extra revenue of $850,000 from the state to help cover that unfavorable variance. And again, you can see that the county did reflect an increase. They raised the budget to 6.88. But again, based on the growth we've seen in the program, we think you still might be 350,000 short. But again, offset by about $10,000 of revenue. So not a large variance for the large program. The education and tuition for the children in the program, again, $850,000 unfavorable. That's basically based on the number of children in the program through September. And again, offset by state aid of about $500,000 favorable variance. And again, we trended that number forward. We're at 40.67 million, only about a $240,000 variance, again, offset by 140 of state aid. So again, not a major variance in that side of the budget. Bus transportation, we spend about, we're projecting about 12.4 million to transport the children to the programs. Your contracts call for increases due to fuel. And being that fuel did not rise at the rate during last year that we had anticipated, we'd seen in previous years. You have a $750,000 favorable variance, we think, in transportation costs. And again, these costs are capped by New York State, so there's no offset on loss of state aid. So this should be a pure favorable variance on the expenditure side. Again, going into 26, we see about a $930,000 favorable variance. Again, if you don't add any routes and if fuel costs stay relatively flat or a slight increase, you should see a $930,000 favorable. Again, the county is over the reimbursement cap, so that would be pure savings. Jail medical, last year you did an RFP to take care of the inmates at the facility. And when you did that RFP, it came in significantly higher than the previous contract, but you had included that in the budget in 25, but it didn't take effect till February, so you did have 1 month of savings of about 410,000. The current budget is then what they be times 12 months, so we agree. This is just a listing of your debt and what funds pay the debt. We did have a $2.68 million unfavorable variance here because you did issue new debt in August that was not included in the budget. So we think you do need to make amendment for that in the budget of 2.68 to pay the debt. Principal and interest. The landfill. Again, you're more of a transfer station. You bring landfill, you bring solid waste in, you transfer solid waste out. So your revenues are coming in favorable, which means you're bringing in more tonnage. But because you're bringing in more tonnage, you're going to have the offset expenses. You ship the tonnage out. So we saw 960,000 favorable on the revenue, but 910,000 unfavorable on expense. Again, minor next to a $10 million budget. On 26, again, based on the tonnage, we do see a $520,000 favorable variance on the revenue side. But again, 520,000 offset sending it out. And Westchester hasn't submitted their new rates to you yet, so that might change. Community college tuition. Again, as your students attend community colleges in other areas, you have to pay that chargeback rate to the other colleges. So as when we did the Orange Community College budget review, we did point out that your enrollment had increased. And I would think correspondingly, the enrollment in some of the other community colleges increased. So we see an unfavorable variance of $380,000 as you're paying out more to the other colleges, similar to you're taking in on yours. And again, with that trend, you can see that the county did increase the budget by 200,000. We think you're still short because we were over what you had. So we think it's 330,000 unfavorable. And you can see most of those students are going to Rockland Community College and a lot to the Fashion Institute Technology budget. So your two surrounding colleges, plus the one in New York, are absorbing most of what you pay out. Contingency, the county includes about $2 million in the budget in 25 to cover unknown costs that may occur during the course of the year. Or even as you get grants that have a local share match, this is where you get the money to pay that match. Currently, you've only used $1,070,000 of it. So you have $930,000 still left in that contingency, assuming you don't use it, it will fall towards your fund balance. 2026, you include $2.4 million in that reserve. We're talking about social services. Again, we'll talk about all the programs and social services. I won't walk you through all the slides, but if you start with administration, we can see that on the expenditure side for 2025, it's favorable. And that's because, as I said before, you have vacant positions, the related fringe benefits, but you also lose the state aid and federal aid reimbursement. So you have a net 900,000 impact to your local share. Daycare, you went over budget by about 7.9 million, and that's not because of bad budgeting. What happens is you get your federal allocation after you adopt your budget, so you then reappropriate the money. That grant hasn't come through because the federal government is in a different year, and obviously there is a shutdown, so they're not letting you know what that allocation may be. So when you know it, you may modify your budget to reflect that grant. MMIS, weekly shares, that's the amount of money that's taken every week from you for the cover your cost of Medicaid. As you remember, you used to get what was known as FMAP payments, federal Medicaid assistance. Well, that ended. The state's keeping all that for themselves. And now you're paying your full boat, but you do have a unfavorable variance here because you did spend out a little more. You assumed you're going to get some FMAP in the first 3 months of the year. IGT is the intergovernmental transfer, the money you send up to New York State, and then they send back double that to your nursing home. So you did budget and allocation, but you got double that because it was 2 years. So you went 4.1 million over here, but your nursing home got about 8.2 million. So the county did come out ahead. Service for recipients are all the contracts that you let out for the clients that you have in social services. And again, when you put your budget together, you know the maximum amount of contracts and that's what you budget. but you didn't spend all that money in the budget, so it looks like you might have about $3.1 million savings. Again, offset by some state aid that you get on those programs, of $1,650,000. Family assistance is the major program, the biggest one. Looks like you might go about $990,000 over on that. And again, but that's mostly reimbursed by the state, so you get back almost $800,000 back on that program. Safety net is the big cost to the county. Safety net is after you've used up 5 years of your services in DSS, you fall into what's known as the New York State Safety Net Program. And again, I might have the percentage transposed, but it's 79% county, 21% state, or it's 71-29. It's one or the other, but it's 70% yours. It's a major hit to you. So we're projecting that you went over by about $4,560,000, and of which only $1,230,000 will be reimbursed. And as I said before the meeting, the number of recipients seemed high to me because the number of growth from last year to this year, and it's because the host county pays for these people. So if somebody relocates to Orange County from another place where they were on safety net, it now becomes your burden. So if people move to Orange County and are on safety net, you bear that burden. So if somebody moved from Rockland County, Westchester County, New York City, Sullivan County, and they were in the program, you bear that cost because you're the host county. Okay. 26, we really only found a small variance in administration, and this is due to the projected savings I indicated were in healthcare costs. So again, DSS's share of that healthcare cost would be about $1 million favorable variance, offset by a loss of state and federal aid. Family assistance, again, we're unfavorable, and that's due to the fact that we were higher than you on our projection, offset by about $490,000 of state aid. But the big one again is safety net. We added $3,600,000. We see $3,650,000 more as an expenditure because your budget doesn't even have enough to cover what we project for 2025. So hopefully we're wrong, but if that program grows again, it could be $3.6 million short and only offset by about $980,000 of federal aid. Skip these. These are all the details of those slides. I put them on the summary for this because it's going to be easier to see later. Nursing home, again, I think this answers some of your questions. You can see on the personnel services line, your estimate was good vacant positions. You can see it went down, it's only by 5,000, but it didn't go up because of the contracts and the rate. But they eliminated enough positions to offset those costs. And I made a note as to what the $1,700,000 was in the notes here. No, I did not. But in the contractual side, you came in about $1,700,000 under, and that's usually for meals, drugs, and things that as your census grows. The contractual expenditure. Right. It's about $1,700,000. So overall, you're down to $1,600,000 in that category. And I think you budgeted the same 4.1 for IGT, right? So you budgeted $8 million. And again, it's an area where you should be concerned. The federal government is attempting to balance their budget and they're looking at Medicaid programs. The IGT program is a program that is only for municipal-owned nursing homes, and that's the lesser amount of nursing homes in the country. So that might be to them some low-hanging fruit to look at because it is a program that stands out all by itself. So Valley View net position, according to their financial statements, is about $180 million deficit. But that's because if you remember their full accrual, they have to record OPEB, pension liabilities, and everything else. When I convert them to the government side, they have about a $37 million fund balance, of which you're appropriating $13 million roughly to balance this year. Capital projects, again, this is just a highlight of some of the new projects that you have in your budget. Summary of findings is what sums up everything we have. And then we come to your fund balance page. So what does all this mean for your fund balance? As of your audit report, at the end of 24, county had almost $308 million of fund balance. That's broken up into various buckets, non-spendable, because it's already accounted for in the new year. For example, you have prepaid your retirement bill for the first quarter. You also prepaid your January health insurance. So those items are considered non-spendable because they're already accounted for. You have $15 million of restricted monies. Those restrictions are set by law. You have $900,000 worth of committed money. But your biggest number is you have $21 million of encumbrances in that number, which is purchase orders that were issued near the end of the year that haven't been fulfilled yet. And then you have $82 million worth of assigned fund balance. So the county legislature and the executive worked together and taken some of that fund balance and assigned it for future capital projects. You signed it for some different cases of disaster hits, like a couple of years ago, you had a big flood over by West Point where the roads were damaged and the county had to step up and assist. So they've taken some of your fund balance and separated it so you have money set aside in case that emergency arises again. And you also have the state aid adjustment, which again, as I said, if this federal government tries to balance a budget, it might pass some of those costs down to you. You set aside some money last year to address those possible needs. And then last year in your budget process, in the general fund, you appropriated $14 million, leaving you $165 million worth of unassigned. The next series of numbers are all the adjustments that we found that we spoke about. And for 2025, we're projecting roughly a $9 million budgetary surplus, which would bring you up to $174 million of unassigned fund balance and an overall fund balance of $317 million to go into your 26 budget year. So you take those same numbers, since I can't project what is going to be encumbrances, restricted, and committed. So you have $174 million, as I said, of unassigned. Taking into account all of those adjustments, we projected maybe a $4.4 million variance, which would bring you down to an unassigned fund balance of $170 million. I believe your policy for fund balance is 15%, 10%. This would leave you at 17%. So you still have excess fund balance over your policy, and again, the county is in a very healthy position. And not that anybody can read these numbers on the screen, but we did put a schedule in your report that shows you the 5-year history of your fund balance. That's it. There's rapid fire.
Minority of
No, just, at the previous meeting, you said at the beginning of this meeting, there's a $53 million hole in the budget. And we've taken 63 from our undesignated fund balance. Then we've taken an additional 13.
No, the 63 includes the 13.
And includes
Yeah,
that.
your total appropriated fund balance is 63 million,
Right, so
of which 13 million of
we
it,
took 50 out of that.
right. Roughly,
And that's
you
still the
did some for the other funds too. I
That's still
think,
the biggest number.
I think general fund was 44 million. If you want, we can back that slide.
That's okay.
But I think the general fund was 44 million, but you did appropriate some money in the various funds. Because you do have surpluses in those.
Legislator O'Donnell.
So, county exec gave you a nice going away credit. Got rid of like 100 positions, right?
You have 88 less vacant positions than last year.
There you go. How do you like doing that, folks? Huh? See that?
That's a start.
Exactly. So they took care of you before you left. Hopefully he's gonna take care of me before I leave now, because I do this every year.
I'm gonna do this. I'll be there.
Yeah, so last year, I think we did 3 million. I think it was 2, it went to 3. And then the year before was 2 or 3. So, this year, I'm gonna ask the legislature to reduce the tax levy from 124 million back and make it flat to 120 million. So I believe the $4 million will come out of the $174 million surplus. And if you average it out for every taxpayer, it's peanuts. It's not a lot of money, but it's our job just to take care of some of the taxpayers' money, and this will be my going away present for the taxpayers. So I'll make a motion that we lower the levy to the 25 number, and that would lower it by $4 million.
Second.
And we'll in essence, lower the, from 174 to 170. We'll still have $170 million of the taxpayers' money.
Any discussion at the motion, a second? Legislator Revelle.
Is there an exact number? What it gives, it's just for a flat 4 million, isn't there, like, it's not
Well-
exactly 4 million, right?
No, it's exactly 4 million. Because the adopted budget in 2025, the tax levy was $120,638,634. So the rate was 2.142, right? The 26 budget is recommended an increase of $4 million to make the tax rate 2.014. Okay?
Yeah.
So all I'm doing is making a motion to bring it back to 2025 level, and the money comes from the
Fund balance.
fund balance, the extra.
Just want to make sure, because you said 120 million flat, that's 120.6. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Questions? My opinion on it is just that we're going to have significantly lower revenue from investments this year due to interest rate reduction. And I think we should keep it where we're at.
That's the future, and we don't know what the interest rates are gonna be. We still have,
It just went down a quarter and they're going to go down.
we still have $174 million of taxpayers' money. And we've historically done this the last 3 years. And for each taxpayer, believe me, it's probably less than $50.
That I don't know.
Legislator Cheney?
Yeah, could I ask the budget director a question? How is this budget that we're looking at now compared to previous budgets in terms of, how tight is it and how much up against it are we relative to previous
It
years?
is a tight budget. We cut a lot also, based on all of our departments. We checked with them and we're saying, we did do a lot with all of the departments itself. So, and then we still had to have $50 million in surplus, so.
And how much contingency is in this budget compared to previous ones?
About $60 million.
No,
Oh,
contingency.
contingency, 2.4.
2.4 million? And how does that compare to the
2 million.
previous?
So it's.
2 million
it's-
previous year.
Right, it's 4 million, and that is because, you don't know how the security piece is. So basically, security, armed guards are now $11 more per hour.
We already have we're going to have to make a correction of 2.9 million to offset our debt.
Yeah, so we're
So
gonna,
we're already going to take 3 million from it before we get started. That would be essentially 7 million.
I think it's as tight as it is, might not be the year to play with this number and reduce it.
Like I said, you still have $174 million of the taxpayers' money. When you all said and done, what's the difference? Pretty flat? Total plus. the
Oh.
minuses you gave us throughout the
The
book.
variance is net down to 4.4 million.
Favorable or on?
Unfair.
Okay.
Mostly along the lines of sales tax.
And what's the usual number?
Usually our findings, it's usually a positive number.
Yeah.
So I mean, this budget was a lot tighter.
Yeah.
And again, you're using a lot of fund balance, but, that's your policy decisions on what fund balance you use.
Legislator Cheney?
The fund balance isn't just there for this 2026 budget. It's a hedge against the future issues that might come up relative to the economy and other things, state funding. So I still feel that it's not the appropriate step to take.
Again, that's just a difference in philosophy. I'm just trying to return some of the taxpayers' money. And we went from, we used to keep in 2019,
about $55 million in their money, okay? And we went in 23 to 173 million. And now we're at 174. I think it's time to let the people keep some of their own money. And like I said, for the 400,000 people that live here, this is peanuts, peanuts. And you can raise the taxes next year, which you're not gonna have to. We went from 165 and 24, 169, and now at 174. When is enough taxpayers? That's my point. It's peanuts, it means very little. You are always gonna have a huge fund balance here unless some catastrophe that we never had. Even after we've had Sandy, been here, I've been here for most of the tragic events, and we've gone through them, and since then, we've been able to grow. You know, so I just don't think it's right to keep that much. And we've done this in the past. You co-sponsored, right?
Legislator
Thank you,
Rebel.
sir.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, is there a reason why our policy is 10%? Is that for how long has it been that? There's no- It's not recommended by the accountants or comptroller?
Used to be 7%.
Our recommendation is to have a policy.
Now, that's another philosophy argument.
You like that, huh?
That are Standard and Poor's, and who are the others?
Moody.
Moody, they want us to go to 20%,
Right.
25 to 30.
25 or 30, because it makes their job easy, right? They'd like you to keep all the taxpayers. That's another discussion for less than 60 days. Okay? Less than 60, give me a going away present.
You're gonna get 2.9 million.
No, just reduce.
Legislator Fagione.
And Jimmy, I just, first of all, Legislator O'Donnell, I appreciate you, for your acumen and stuff. And I think that at the times that we are looking at and the uncertain future, that I think that this year might be a little bit much to ask. So I think you're gonna vote no on your motion out of respect. I wanted to tell you that beforehand. So thank you, Chairman.
Anybody else?
When I win again, I can run on that.
I just want to say our policy is 10%. We should make great effort to be towards 10%. If it's going to be 20%, then make it 20%.
Well, we're
The
recommending.
policy's
by-
10, it's 10.
How much over 10 are we?
What's the new recommendation by? These ones?
And can I just, again, you have to realize that you are balancing your budget right now with that surplus, and you're starting at a deficit, so next year you're gonna need surplus again to balance the budget, is the way we're starting.
And we still have $174 million of taxpayer money
Okay, I'm gonna
to
call,
start the year.
I'm gonna call the question. Can you do roll call, please?
Benton,
No.
Cheney,
No.
Fagione,
No.
O'Donnell,
Yes.
Paduk,
Yes.
Bella,
Yes.
Ellerts,
No.
3 yes, 4 no.
It fails.
It fails. It fails.
He needs more to, they need pass.
I
was thinking about that.
Can't even miss the lab. Well, I think it's still gonna come before the war. No, I can't.
Okay, any other questions for our review here? Any other questions from the floor, any legislators? Okay, I just want to thank our budget and finance departments for, once again, bringing us a very tight and fiscally responsible budget. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll move on with it.
Agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back.
I don't think we did the whole meeting.
Tina, we didn't do roll in the beginning?
Roll call. Oh, yeah.
Everybody sit up and do the pledge.
Sorry?
Everybody sit up and pledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
We didn't do a roll.
Then just do it now.
Sorry, let's do it now before we do our two items.
Every person.
Yes.
Sorry. Again, thanks for your time.
Shaney?
Here.
Cashion?
Here.
Luhan? Bill? Donald? Sorry.
Good, don't worry.
Roll call. That's your here. Bella?
Here.
Keller?
Here.
Seven present, one absent.
Which one's with the two?
Just do the presentation.
Yes, so we have to do
Two,
here.
which is these.
So we'll review and vote on amendments to the county executive's proposed budget for 2026 as recommended by O'Connor Davies LLP. Have a motion, please?
So.
Jamie, have a second.
I'll make a second.
Fagion?
No, we don't have to do this.
You do it, but you can say that you will make no change.
We do, it's just the make no changes, right? Motion?
So, well, we are gonna make a change, right, because we're gonna do it at.
That's number
at the
three.
debt.
That's right, that's number
We're on
three.
number two now.
Yeah, we just accept their recommendations like
Okay, so
with the words that they present, but we don't make any of
I'll
those.
call the
minor.
question as to accept as submitted. How's that? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we're on to number three. Review proposed changes by statutory committees and legislators and vote. Motion, please.
Second.
Bella, Benton. Yes, do we have any discussion on this page? We can identify this as page.
It's just the amendments passed out of
Legislative
committee,
changes.
legislative changes from committee.
Made to the 2026 executive recommended budget. Any discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried. Okay, now we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.